My hands are shaking so bad I can barely type this. NGL, I never thought I'd be posting something like this. A total throwaway account moment. I'm Jed, 38, married to Brenda for 10 years. We had this rock-solid thing, or so I thought. Today I came home early to surprise her after closing a huge deal, but found her getting ready for someone else. Everything feels off. My hands are still shaking. NGL, I'm trying to piece together when things started going sideways. When the first crack appeared. It was just last Friday. I was feeling on top of the world. I just closed this massive real estate deal, weeks ahead of schedule. We'd been working on it for months, my biggest one yet. I was so stoked to celebrate, to come home and surprise Brenda. My wife, my partner for 10 years. I pictured her face when I'd tell her, maybe we'd order takeout, open that fancy champagne we'd been saving. It was going to be perfect. I pulled into the driveway grinning, but then I saw it. Brenda's car was already in the garage. My eyebrow went up. That was weird. She usually worked a bit later on Fridays. Not a red flag, not yet, but just out of place. My first thought was maybe she'd left work early to get a head start on a weekend trip or something. Or maybe she was sick. I walked in calling her name. No answer. I heard the shower running upstairs, the muffled sound of water. Brenda, you home? I called again, louder this time. Still no reply over the water. A little flicker of annoyance, but mostly just confusion. I decided to head up and surprise her. I mean, what's better than catching your wife off guard and telling her you just bagged a huge deal, right? As I got to the bedroom door, the shower was still going. I pushed the door open quietly, planning to peek in, maybe tap on the bathroom door. But my eyes landed on the bed first. And that's when everything started feeling off. Laid out meticulously on our bed were clothes I hadn't seen her wear in ages. Not for me, anyway. A couple of cocktail dresses, one a sleek black number, the other a deep sapphire blue, and beneath them a matching set of black lace lingerie. Next to it, her favorite, ridiculously high black patent leather heels. The ones she called her dancing shoes. Then I saw it on her dresser, her expensive, heavy perfume, the one she usually only saved for fancy events or holidays. And right next to it, her boldest, brightest red lipstick, already uncapped. My stomach did a weird flip. My heart started thumping this heavy, anxious rhythm against my ribs. I stood there, frozen, just staring at this tableau. The air was thick with her perfume, way too much for just a regular Friday night. The shower turned off. My breath hitched. I quickly tried to compose myself, tried to look normal. But inside, I was a coiled spring. What the hell was going on? Who was she going out with that required this kind of effort? And why hadn't she said anything? The bathroom door opened and Brenda stepped out, wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her. She looked up, saw me, and actually jumped. Like a full-on startled leap. Her eyes went wide, a flash of something I couldn't quite decipher. Panic? Guilt? Before she plastered on a smile, a little too bright, a little too quick. Jed, oh my God, you scared me, she laughed, but it was thin. What are you doing home so early? I tried to keep my voice even, casual. Closed the Peterson deal, baby, weeks early. Came home to celebrate. I watched her face carefully. A flicker of surprise, then back to that too bright smile. Oh, that's amazing, honey. Wow, that's fantastic. She hugged me, a quick, almost perfunctory squeeze. Her skin was still damp, smelling like her usual shower gel, but under it, I could already detect the faint ghost of that expensive perfume. She pulled away, moving towards the bed, her eyes darting to the clothes. Yeah, I was just about to tell you, I have dinner plans tonight. My gut twisted. Dinner plans? With who? She picked up the black dress, pretending to inspect it. Oh, just a friend, Mitch Miller, from that sales conference last year. Mitch Miller, NGL, I barely remembered the guy. Just some sales reps she'd met at a work event. They'd exchanged numbers for networking. Mitch Miller, huh? And you're wearing that for Mitch Miller? I gestured to the array of formal wear. My voice was calm, but I could feel the edge underneath. It wasn't just the dress. It was the lingerie, the heels, the heavy perfume, the lipstick, the whole damn production. She hadn't dressed like this for me in I don't even know how long. Our anniversary, maybe? She brushed past my comment, picking up the black dress. It's just dinner, Jed. We're going to that new place downtown. It's a little swanky. She avoided my gaze. I figured I'd dress up a bit. Right, a bit. I pushed off the door frame, walking to the dresser, picking up the red lipstick. This isn't a bit, Brenda. This is an event. I put the lipstick down carefully, trying not to smash it in my hand. She just shrugged, already slipping the black lace bra on. Don't be silly, I just feel like looking nice. You always look nice. The words felt flat, empty. I knew she heard the underlying question, the accusation in my tone, but she just ignored it, like she always did when I subtly pushed back, like she was already trained not to hear it. I need a drink, I muttered, turning away, needing a moment to process this sudden, unsettling reality. My celebration mood had evaporated, replaced by this cold dread. As I headed for the kitchen, I glanced back. Brenda was pulling on a pair of new thigh-high stockings, seamless and silky smooth. She caught my eye and gave a small, almost coy smile. What do you think? These are new. She was acting like she wanted my approval, but it felt performative, like she was trying too hard to make me feel included or to diffuse something. I just nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. They're nice. Can you button this for me, honey? She asked, turning her back, holding the black dress up to herself. I walked back, my fingers clumsy as I fastened the tiny buttons. Her skin was warm under my touch. She smelled good, beautiful, but also alien, distant. Jed, she said, her voice a little too sweet, can you grab me some spiced rum? I'm feeling a little restless tonight. Need something to take the edge off. Restless. That word hung in the air. As I walked back out of the room, my mind was racing, trying to put the pieces together. The early arrival, the elaborate outfit, the specific friend, the restless feeling. It felt like a bad puzzle. I was almost out of the bedroom when I glanced back one more time, just for a second, and that's when I saw it. Quick as a flash, Brenda reached for my nightstand, near where I usually kept my wallet and keys. She grabbed something small, tucked it into the lining of her clutch bag, which was lying open on the bed, and snapped it shut. Too fast, too secretive. My blood ran cold. I made it to the kitchen, grabbed the spiced rum, but I didn't even pour it. My mind was reeling from that quick, secretive movement. Brenda grabbing something from my nightstand. It wasn't a casual thing. It was a deliberate snatch and hide. My heart was pounding like a goddamn drum solo. I walked back to the bedroom, pretending to go to the bathroom. Brenda was in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, humming some tune. She glanced at me in the reflection, gave a small smile. Everything okay, honey? Yeah, fine, just thirsty, I mumbled, my voice a bit strained. I went to my side of the bed, the pretense of grabbing something for myself. My eyes immediately dropped to the nightstand, and that's when it hit me like a gut punch. My custom-made solid gold wedding band. The one I always took off before showering, putting it right there next to my watch. It wasn't there. A cold, sickening wave of dread washed over me. A physical shock, my blood ran cold, then hot with a sickening rush. It wasn't just gone, it was stolen. By her. Why? Why my ring? What the actual hell was that supposed to mean? My mind started racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Did it roll off? No, I always placed it carefully. Was I mistaken? Had I worn it into the shower? Absolutely not. I've had it resized once, learned my lesson. I quickly replayed everything. Her nervous energy, the way she jumped when I first walked in, that fake bright smile, the elaborate outfit from Mitch Miller, her restless feeling, all of it started to coalesce into something horrifying. She hadn't accidentally put it away. She hadn't found it somewhere and put it in her bag for safekeeping. No, that secretive motion, the way she tucked it into her clutch, it was purposeful, malicious even. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she needed it for a prop, for a work thing? No, that's insane. Maybe it was some weird, elaborate joke? My brain was spinning, but every single excuse I tried to conjure up shattered against the hard truth I was staring at. It made no sense. Unless, unless it was a twisted trophy or some sick, symbolic act of betrayal. That thought made me feel like I was going to throw up. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down, at least on the surface. Confronting her now in my current state wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed proof. Hard proof. This wasn't just a gut feeling anymore. This was a chilling, undeniable sense that my entire world was about to explode. "Thanks, honey," Brenda said, interrupting my frantic thoughts. She took the spiced rum from my hand. Just what I needed. She gave me another one of those smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. "No problem," I managed, my voice sounding unnaturally calm to my own ears. I excused myself, heading to the living room, ostensibly to watch TV, but my real mission had just begun. I was going to play dumb. I was going to find out what the hell was going on. As soon as she was out of earshot, still getting ready in the bedroom, I started a discreet sweep. I went back into the bedroom, trying to appear casual, like I was just looking for my phone charger. My eyes scanned every surface, every drawer I could subtly open. I checked her side of the nightstand, under the pillows, even gently ran my hand along the floor next to the bed. Nothing. Then I moved to her dresser, pretending to straighten a pile of magazines. My fingers brushed against the lingerie drawer. Her fancy, expensive stuff. It was usually pretty neat. But today, something felt off. I gently pulled the drawer open a few inches, just enough to peek. Tucked beneath a silk slip, almost completely hidden, was a small, sleek black cell phone. Not her regular phone. This one was thinner, newer, clearly a burner phone. My breath hitched again. It was locked, of course. I didn't even bother trying to guess a password. The sight of it was enough. This wasn't just dinner with a friend. This was premeditated. This was a whole other level of deception. Suddenly, all those little things that had seemed like nothing over the past few weeks started flashing through my mind. Her work emergencies that kept her out late, sometimes until after midnight. The vague excuses she'd give. The times she'd take calls in the other room. Her voice hushed. I dismissed them as stress from her job. Maybe a new project. NGL, I was an idiot. A clueless, trusting idiot. I carefully closed the lingerie drawer, making sure it looked exactly as it had before. Next, I discreetly pulled up our shared online bank accounts on my laptop in the living room. I scrolled through recent transactions, looking for anything out of place. Big cash withdrawals, unexpected charges, nothing overtly suspicious. A few more charges than usual for maybe some extra shopping here and there, but nothing that screamed affair. At least, not yet. This was going to be a long game, I realized. I started an internal log, a mental inventory of everything. The dress, the perfume, the lipstick, the dancing shoes, Mitch Miller, the stolen wedding band, the burner phone, the recent late nights. Each item was a cold, hard nail being hammered into the coffin of my marriage. The initial gut feeling of unease had solidified into a chilling, horrifying reality. My wife, the woman I loved, was betraying me. Brenda called out from the bedroom, "Jed, can you grab my small purse? It's on the closet shelf." My heart hammered. This was my chance. I went into the walk-in closet, found her tiny, sparkly evening clutch. I reached inside, my fingers fumbling. And there it was, tucked deep inside a small zipper pocket I didn't even know existed. A tiny receipt from a high-end hotel bar, the kind of place with velvet ropes and overpriced cocktails. A place I'd never been with Brenda. A place I wouldn't even think to take her to on a casual dinner with a sales rep. My hands were shaking as I quickly pulled out my phone, snapped a few pictures of the receipt, making sure the date and location were clear. December 12th, just last week. My breath caught in my throat. I memorized the date, the name of the bar, then carefully, painstakingly, tucked the receipt back exactly where I'd found it. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it. "Got it," I called out, my voice a little rougher than I intended. I walked out, handed her the purse. She didn't notice a thing. She just smiled, grabbed her car keys, and headed for the door. "Wish me luck," she chirped, giving me a quick peck on the cheek, that damn red lipstick leaving a faint mark. Good luck, I said, my voice barely a whisper, as the front door closed behind her. I stood there in the silent house, the faint scent of her perfume lingering. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to get in my car and follow her, to see where she went, who she met. But I knew I couldn't. Not tonight. I was too emotional, too enraged, too unstable. I'd screw it up. I needed to be smart. This was just the beginning. I barely slept that night. Every rustle of the sheets, every sound from Brenda's side of the bed sent jolts of adrenaline through me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind a war zone. The stolen ring, the burner phone, the fancy hotel receipt, the way she looked at me, or rather didn't look at me. It was all a swirling, sickening mess. I needed answers. I needed undeniable proof. The very next morning, before Brenda even stirred, I was up and out. My first stop was an electronics store. I bought a discreet, long-lasting GPS tracker. As soon as I got home, while Brenda was in the shower, I quickly, stealthily installed it on the underside of her car. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to be steady, to be efficient. This wasn't about rage right now, it was about precision. Back inside, I sat at my laptop, my coffee growing cold beside me. I pulled up our shared credit card statements. This time I went through them with a fine-tooth comb, not just for big red flags, but for any small anomalies. And there they were. Recurring charges, not huge but consistent, at an expensive upscale restaurant called the Ember Room. I'd never taken Brenda there. It was known for its intimate ambiance, its ridiculously priced wine list. And the charges were always on specific weekdays, usually a Tuesday or a Thursday. The dates aligned perfectly with some of Brenda's late nights at work or dinner with colleagues. NGL, my stomach churned. I scrolled further, past the usual groceries and household expenses. A few more subtle charges stood out. A high-end flower shop I didn't recognize. A gift boutique. Small purchases, easily overlooked if you weren't looking for them. But now, in the context of everything else, they screamed. My next move was critical. I didn't want to mess this up. I scrolled through my phone contacts, landing on Gus. Gus was a private investigator I'd used years ago for a tricky property deal, a case that required a lot of discretion and digging. He was good, efficient, and above all, utterly silent. I took a deep breath and called him. "Gus, it's Jed," I said, my voice tight, trying to sound as normal as possible. "I need your help with something. It's delicate." He knew my tone. "Jed, what's up? Property issue again?" "No, personal. Marriage stuff." I hated admitting it, even to Gus, but there was no other way. I quickly, succinctly laid out my suspicions. Brenda's strange behavior, the fancy clothes, the late nights, the hotel receipt, and finally the missing wedding band. I gave him Mitch Miller's name, explaining he was a supposed friend. Gus listened without interrupting, just a series of mm-hms on the other end. When I finished, he said, "Okay, Jed, this sounds messy. I'll start with Mitch Miller. Get surveillance on him, check his movements, his regular haunts. We'll see if Brenda pops up, and I'll dig into his travel schedule." "And Brenda?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll keep an eye on her indirectly through Miller. But for anything more direct on her, we need to be careful about legalities. What about your shared devices? Home computer? Tablets?" "We have a shared iMac, and Brenda has an iPad she uses for work and personal stuff," I told him. "Good," Gus said. "Here's what you do. Discreetly download any data you can from the shared computer. Look for old files, deleted browser history, anything. For the iPad, if it's synced to a shared iCloud account, you might be able to recover deleted messages. Photos, just be careful. Don't leave a trace." He gave me some technical pointers, advice on recovery software, and how to create an encrypted folder. I spent the next few hours meticulously following Gus's instructions. While Brenda was at work, I went through the iMac, checking browsing history, deleted files. Nothing glaringly obvious there, but it was a start. Then I turned to Brenda's iPad. It was linked to our family iCloud account, so I had access. I downloaded a recovery program Gus suggested and started sifting through the digital debris. It was like sifting through wreckage. Hours crawled by. Then I found them. Deleted messages. A whole thread between Brenda and a number I didn't recognize. The name associated with it was simply M. My hands started to shake uncontrollably as I read. The messages were explicit, suggestive, intimate. Can't wait to see you, baby. Thinking about you all day. That night at the Ember Room was incredible. You look stunning. Counting down the days till your next business trip here. My worst fears, my gut feelings, the dread I'd been fighting, they were all undeniable now. The words on the screen were a physical blow. I felt a wave of nausea like I was going to be sick right there at the desk. The betrayal was so raw, so complete. It wasn't just a physical affair, it was an emotional one too. The love bombing, the pet names, the longing, it was all there laid out for me in cold, hard text. My wife, my Brenda. I carefully copied all the recovered data, saving it into a secure encrypted folder on an external hard drive, just as Gus instructed. This was going to be my evidence, my shield, my weapon. Later that day when Brenda was out again, I subtly checked her physical work calendar. She kept it in the kitchen, usually with mundane appointments. But now, with my new lens, I saw it. Off-site meeting, client lunch, business trip to Denver. Those phrases, once innocuous, now scream cover-up. And I started to notice a pattern. Her off-site meetings often fell on the same days I remembered Mitch Miller being in town for his own sales calls. It was too much of a coincidence. Then Gus's first report landed in my encrypted email. It was concise, professional, and devastating. He'd already found Mitch Miller's usual haunts, his home address, his known travel schedule. And the kicker, Mitch Miller's business travel, which took him to our city regularly, aligned perfectly with Brenda's friend's story. The friend was coming to her, and she was going to him. The dates, the times, the places, it all fit. The picture was forming, clear and horrifying. This wasn't a sudden, impulsive mistake. This was a long-standing, carefully orchestrated affair, and I had just begun to scratch the surface. The next few days were a blur of numb efficiency. I was an automaton, going through the motions of my day, nodding and smiling at Brenda, while inside my world was crumbling. Gus was relentless. His next report hit my inbox like a bombshell. I opened the encrypted email, my hands already damp with sweat. The first file was a series of photos. My breath hitched. There she was, Brenda, sitting across from Mitch Miller in a cozy, tucked-away booth at a restaurant. Definitely not the Ember Room, but equally intimate. They were laughing, heads close together. In one devastating shot, their hands were clasped across the table, his thumbs stroking hers. Just seeing it, the casual intimacy, the easy comfort between them, was a physical blow. But then I zoomed in, and that's when my blood ran cold, freezing in my veins. Clear as day, on Brenda's pinky finger, was my custom-made solid gold wedding band, the one she'd snatched from my nightstand, the one meant to symbolize our eternal commitment. She was wearing it, on her pinky, while holding hands with another man. The cold, hard proof hit me with the force of a train. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated, mocking deception, a twisted trophy. It was a slap in the face, a desecration of everything we had built. My initial dread morphed into a profound sense of humiliation, a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. How could she? How could she be so cruel, so brazen? I closed the photos, my vision blurring, my stomach churning. I had to focus. I had to keep moving. I continued to monitor the GPS tracker on Brenda's car. It painted a clear, sickening picture. Frequent, consistent trips to a specific upscale hotel downtown, the same one where the bar receipt had originated. The pattern was undeniable. She wasn't just meeting him for lunch. She was spending serious time there. Gus confirmed my suspicions. His next update included not just more photos, but actual hotel records. Brenda and Mitch Miller checking into that very hotel, sometimes under false names, sometimes under their own, entering and exiting together, sometimes hours apart, sometimes together, looking far too comfortable, far too casual, like a married couple on a weekend getaway. Except it wasn't a weekend. It was Tuesdays or Thursdays, My work days, my late nights at the office days for her, the humiliation, the rage, the sickening betrayal, it all boiled over. I locked myself in my home office, struggling to breathe. My entire life felt like a lie. This woman who shared my bed, my home, my children, was living a double life, a sordid secret life, mocking me with my own wedding band. There was no going back now. My focus shifted from uncovering the truth to preparing for the inevitable fallout. I immediately began researching top divorce lawyers in the city. I needed someone sharp, someone discreet, someone who could navigate this landmine. I scheduled multiple, discreet consultations over the next few days, using my work meetings as cover. Next, I started the painstaking, quiet process of moving liquid assets. We had joint accounts, investments. I meticulously transferred a significant portion of my individual income and savings into a separate, secure account, making sure to stay within legal limits and not trigger any alarms. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I was protecting myself and my daughters. Then came the spreadsheets. I spent hours, late into the night, creating a detailed inventory of all our shared marital assets and liabilities. The house, our cars, bank accounts, investment portfolios, retirement funds, debts, every single thing. It felt like I was meticulously dismantling my own life, piece by painful piece. I felt like I was trapped in a twisted spy movie. Except it wasn't a movie. It was my real life, imploding around me, and I was the unsuspecting protagonist, now forced into the role of the investigator. The stress was immense. I was losing weight, barely sleeping, my nerves constantly frayed. But beneath the panic, there was a cold resolve. I would get through this. One evening, while Brenda was running errands, I went back to her car. This time, I planted a small, discreet voice recorder under the passenger seat. Just in case. You never knew what you might pick up. A phone call, a conversation, a stray comment. Any piece of evidence could be crucial. Later that week, while she was showering, I did another deep dive into her side of the closet. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just anything. And there it was, hidden deep in a shoebox beneath some old scarves, a small velvet gift box. My heart sped up. I opened it. Inside, nestled on a satin cushion, was an expensive new watch, clearly a men's watch. A high-end brand, something Mitch Miller would wear or buy for someone. A gift. From him. Another gut punch. I snapped a quick photo and carefully put it back. I started noticing Brenda's increasing defensiveness. Any casual question about her day, her whereabouts, or why she was home late was met with vague answers. A quick change of subject, or even a snap of irritation. "Why are you asking so many questions, Jed? Don't you trust me?" she'd say, almost a textbook gaslighting phrase. NGL, it took all my strength not to scream, "No, Brenda, I don't trust you. Not anymore." My daughters, Shelley, Mandy, and Carrie, were oblivious, still in their own worlds. They were happy, innocent. The thought of telling them, of shattering their world, tore me apart. I considered it briefly in a moment of despair, wanting to confide in someone, anyone. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I had to have a full plan, a solid strategy, before I dropped this bomb. For their sake, I had to keep a lid on it. For now. The days blurred into a grueling cycle of feigned normalcy and frantic preparation. My biggest step was the meeting with Sarah. She came highly recommended, sharp as a tack, and with a reputation for handling high-stakes divorce cases with a no-nonsense approach. My first consultation with her felt like a lifeline. I walked into her office carrying a heavy briefcase filled with all the evidence I'd painstakingly collected. Gus's PI reports, the damning photos, the hotel receipts, the retrieved texts, the financial statements. I felt a strange mix of dread and grim satisfaction laying it all out on her polished conference table. Sarah reviewed everything with a clinical eye, her expression unreadable. She outlined the strategy for an at-fault divorce, emphasizing the absolute necessity of irrefutable evidence. "Jed," she said, tapping a file, "this is strong, very strong. The PI reports, the digital evidence, the financial trails. It paints a very clear picture of infidelity. We need to tie it all together, leave no room for doubt." I went through the details of the missing wedding band, the way Brenda had tucked it into her clutch, then worn it on her pinky in the photos with Mitch Miller. Sarah nodded slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. That's profoundly significant, she stated. Not just evidence of the affair, but of a deliberate, malicious act. It shows contempt, a twisted trophy. And we can use that to demonstrate extreme emotional distress and cruelty, which strengthens your case significantly. Over the next few days, acting on Sarah's advice, I moved like a phantom through my own life. I made multiple copies of every single financial document, statement, and asset deed we owned. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property titles for my real estate holdings. Everything was duplicated and stored in various secure locations, off-site. I quietly changed the locks and access codes on several safe deposit boxes I had, ones Brenda didn't even know existed. It felt cold, calculated, but necessary. This wasn't just about me, it was about protecting my daughter's future. I also consulted with a financial advisor, a separate one from our joint advisor, to discuss how to best secure my real estate empire from potential claims during the divorce. Every stone was being turned, every contingency planned for. Sarah's most challenging piece of advice, however, was psychological. Jed, you need to maintain an absolutely normal, calm demeanor at home. No accusations, no visible stress, no changes in routine. She cannot suspect a thing until we are ready to move. Any confrontation now, without our full strategy in place, could jeopardize everything. It was an immense psychological strain. Every evening I would come home, greet Brenda with a kiss, ask about her day, listen to her vague answers, and force myself to act like the loving, unsuspecting husband. Inside, I was a raging storm, meticulously planning her downfall, every interaction feeling like a lie. It was exhausting, soul-crushing. I would practice my confrontation speech in my head late at night, trying to anticipate every one of her reactions, determined to remain calm, methodical, and in control when the time came. Around this time, I also took an additional step. I sent an anonymous, well-documented tip about Mitch Miller's workplace misconduct, using company time and resources for personal affairs, creating a hostile environment and potential harassment to his company's HR department. I included enough verifiable details from Gus's reports to ensure they'd have to take it seriously. Let them deal with their own fallout. NGL, Brenda started a full-blown love bombing campaign in the midst of all this. Sudden affection, unexpected gestures, compliments, a renewed, almost desperate interest in our intimacy. It was classic cover-up behavior, a transparent attempt to smooth things over, to alleviate her own guilt, or maybe to keep me distracted. It only confirmed my suspicions of her manipulation. I went along with it, playing the part, hating myself for it, but knowing it was part of the plan. It was sickening. One evening, as she was being particularly attentive, almost clingy, she casually brought up a past conversation. "You know, Jed," she said, touching my arm, "sometimes I feel like you don't trust me, but you know I'd never do anything to hurt you. I'm always honest with you, right?" It was a subtle, almost preemptive attempt to gaslight me, to plant doubt in my mind before any confrontation. I made sure to subtly document this conversation, noting the date and time. Another piece of the puzzle. My path was clear. I had the evidence, the legal counsel, the financial plan. All that was left was the execution. I set a specific date for the confrontation, just a few days away. It would be after the girls were out of the house, after I had double-checked every single detail, ensuring every T was crossed and I was dotted. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. The day of the confrontation arrived with a cold, clear sky, mirroring the chilling calm I felt inside. The girls were at a sleepover with friends, a strategic move. I chose the living room for the confrontation, a quiet, neutral setting, away from the bedrooms or the kitchen, where a volatile argument might feel even more claustrophobic. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice, when I spoke, was steady. Brenda walked in, unsuspecting, probably expecting a casual evening. I'd just come home from work, playing the part right up to the last second. "Brenda," I said, motioning to the sofa, "can you sit down? We need to talk." Her brow furrowed. "Oh, what's up?" Everything okay?" Her tone was light, airy, completely oblivious. I sat opposite her, placing a stack of printed photos on the coffee table between us. I took a deep breath, focusing on the script I'd rehearsed 100 times in my head. Yes, everything is about to be okay. Then, calmly, methodically, I began. I slid the first photo across the table. It was the one of her and Mitch Miller, laughing, hands clasped, looking way too cozy. Brenda's eyes widened. Her initial reaction was pure shock, her face draining of all color. She snatched the photo, staring at it like it was a foreign object. What? What is this, Jed? This is photoshopped. It has to be. Her voice was a desperate, furious denial. She tried to tear it, but I'd had them printed on sturdy paper. I ignored her outburst. I slid the next photo across. This one showed her again, with Mitch, and in it, clear as day, was my wedding band on her pinky finger. She gasped. Her eyes flickered from the photo to me, pure panic now replacing the shock. "That's not Photoshop it, Brenda," I said, my voice dangerously calm. Then from my pocket, I pulled out my own wedding band, the one I'd retrieved from my nightstand after our last interaction. I placed it gently on the coffee table, right next to the photo. The solid gold ring glinted under the light. "And this is my wedding band, the one you stole from my nightstand." My gaze was unwavering. "Where's yours, Brenda?" Brenda's face was utterly drained of color. She stammered, trying to form words, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted around the room, trapped. Finally, she choked out, I don't know why I did that. I was upset." She admitted to taking my ring, but even then, it was weak, an attempt to minimize. I didn't let her off the hook. I slid another set of documents across the table. The hotel receipts, clearly dated from the Ember Room, and then the printed out, intimate, deleted text from her iPad, complete with the M contact. The love bombing, the longing, the explicit details. She stared at them, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The denial shifted, turning into a furious lashing out. "This is all your fault, Jed. You've been distant. You're never home. You're always focused on work, on your deals. I was lonely. You neglected me." Classic gaslighting. She was trying to flip the script, blame me for her choices. I just listened, my expression unchanged. When she paused for breath, I pointed to her wrist, where she was wearing the expensive new watch. "And where did that come from, Brenda? Did I buy you that? Because I don't remember it." That was it. The dam broke. She finally collapsed, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Okay, I did it. I'm so sorry. I messed up. It was a mistake. It just happened." She confessed to the affair, but even in her confession, she tried to minimize it, tried to make it sound like a momentary lapse, not a months-long calculated deception. "It wasn't a mistake, Brenda," I cut in, my voice devoid of emotion. "It was a series of conscious choices. On December 12th, you were at the Ember Room with him. On January 5th, you checked into the Grand Hyatt together, room 403. You did it again on February 1st, and again last Tuesday. I know the dates, I know the times, I know the locations. I know you used a burner phone. I know you stole my wedding band and wore it as a sick joke. This wasn't a mistake. This was a methodical, planned betrayal." I laid out the GPS logs, the hotel records, the PI reports, every single detail. Brenda's sobs intensified. "Please, Jed, please, I'll end it. I swear. I'll never see him again. I'll do anything, just please don't do this. Think of the girls." She was begging now, promising to end everything with Mitch Miller immediately. I remained stoic, unmoving. My voice was cold, flat. "It's too late for that, Brenda. I've already initiated divorce proceedings. Sarah, my lawyer, filed the papers this morning." Her head shot up, her eyes wide with shock. Then they narrowed into slits of pure, unadulterated rage. "Divorce? You cold-hearted bastard? How could you? After everything we've been through, you're a cruel, heartless monster." The mask was completely off now. No more remorse, just fury. "I'm a heartless monster?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "No, Brenda, I'm a man who just found out his wife has been living the double life, betraying him with another man, wearing his wedding ring like a trophy. I've gathered every piece of evidence, every photograph, every text, every receipt, every hotel record. There's no room for your lies or manipulations anymore. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. Taking my wedding band, Brenda. That was the ultimate, unforgivable betrayal. You didn't just sleep with another man. You desecrated our marriage, our vows, our family, and rubbed my face in it. There's no coming back from that. The days following the confrontation were a living hell. Brenda, reeling from the divorce papers and the undeniable evidence, was a whirlwind of emotions. Denial, anger, pleading, then back to fury. But my focus was on my girls. This was the hardest part. With a heavy heart, I sat Shelley, Mandy, and Carrie down. I chose my words carefully, explaining that sometimes adults make very difficult choices that hurt other people. I told them that their mom and I were getting a divorce because Brenda had made choices that broke our family vows. I didn't go into graphic detail, but I explained there was another man. Their initial reaction was pure devastation, tears, confusion, a cascade of whys and how could she? But then, as the shock wore off, their anger turned sharply. Not at me, but at Brenda, for hurting their dad, for shattering their family. It was heartbreaking to witness, but also, in a strange way, validating. They saw the injustice. Brenda, true to form, desperately tried to contact the girls. Phone calls, texts, even showing up at school pickup once. She was attempting to spin her own victim narrative, portraying herself as misunderstood, as someone who was forced into this by my coldness. But I had already laid the groundwork. I shared a carefully filtered version of the evidence with them. Not the explicit texts, but enough of the photos, the hotel receipts, and the proof of her repeated lies to show them the clear, deliberate betrayal. I explained how hard I had tried to make things right, how much I had loved their mom. Grappling with the raw, ugly truth, the girls began to distance themselves from Brenda. They struggled to reconcile the loving mother they knew with the person who had done this. It wasn't immediate, but over time, their calls became less frequent, their visits shorter. It tore at me to see their pain, but I knew it was a necessary part of their processing. Facing an untenable situation in the house, especially with the girls' growing resentment, Brenda eventually moved out of the family home. She found a temporary apartment, blaming me, of course, for kicking her out, for being vindictive. But the reality was she couldn't stand the truth staring her in the face every day. Whispers and rumors started to spread like wildfire among our mutual friends and social circles. It's a small town, and infidelity doesn't stay secret for long. I maintained a quiet, dignified composure publicly. I didn't need to spread gossip. The facts, once they inevitably leaked out, would speak for themselves. I trusted that those who mattered would see the truth. And then, there was the fallout for Mitch Miller. My anonymous tip to his company's HR department had worked. Gus had confirmation that Mitch was facing severe consequences at his workplace. A full investigation, potential dismissal, and a tarnished professional reputation. NGL, I felt a grim satisfaction. He played a part in blowing up my life, and now his was imploding too. But the ripple effect didn't stop there. Mitch Miller's own wife, through the company investigation or other means, discovered his affair. His personal life was now in ruins. I felt a brief pang for Mitch Miller's innocent family, his wife and kids, who were now experiencing their own version of hell. They didn't deserve this, but I quickly reminded myself that Brenda initiated this chaos, that she was the one who sought him out, who wore my ring, who actively chose this path. Mitch was an accomplice, but Brenda was the architect of our destruction. In the midst of all this turmoil, I threw myself back into my real estate projects. It became my anchor, my escape, my way of finding solace and purpose. The long hours, the complex deals, the negotiations, they demanded my full attention, distracting me from the emotional wreckage at home. It was during these intense work sessions that I truly realized how much emotional energy Brenda had been draining from my life, even before the affair was exposed. The constant need for reassurance, the subtle manipulations, the underlying dissatisfaction she always seemed to carry. It was like shedding a heavy cloak. I began to reclaim my identity. No longer was I simply Brenda's husband, the successful but somewhat overshadowed partner. I was Jed, a driven, capable man, a loving father. I started making decisions for myself, for my future, not for us. Most importantly, I kept my daughters close. Family dinners, movie nights, heart-to-heart talks. I made sure they knew they were loved, that this wasn't their fault, and that we would get through this together. Their well-being was my absolute priority, and seeing them slowly adjust, slowly heal, was the only thing that truly mattered. This was my fight, but it was also their new reality, and I would be their rock. The official divorce proceedings began, and it was every bit as grueling as Sarah had warned. The courtrooms felt sterile, impersonal, a stark contrast to the raw emotion that had led us there. Brenda, emboldened by her own lawyer, came out swinging. Her attorney attempted to dispute every single piece of evidence I'd presented, painting me as a controlling, paranoid husband who had driven Brenda into the arms of another man through neglect and suspicion. It was textbook gaslighting, even in a legal setting. But Sarah was a force of nature. She systematically, patiently, and utterly dismantled Brenda's flimsy defense. Each of Brenda's lawyer's attempts to discredit my evidence was met with a precise, irrefutable counter. The PI reports, the time-stamped photos, the GPS data, the hotel records, the recovered texts from her iPad. Sarah laid it all out with chilling clarity. There was no room for denial, no space for manipulation. The sheer volume and consistency of the evidence were overwhelming. When it came time for the judge to render a decision on the nature of the divorce, he acknowledged the at-fault nature of it without hesitation. The proof of Brenda's infidelity, her deliberate deceit, and the malicious act of wearing my wedding band were simply too compelling to ignore. It wasn't about punitive measures, but about fairly assessing the marital estate given the circumstances. My biggest concern throughout this process had been protecting my premarital real estate empire and my personal assets, the wealth I had painstakingly built long before Brenda and I ever met. Brenda, predictably, attempted to claim a significant portion of it, arguing that her support as my wife contributed to my ability to manage my business. This is where my meticulous planning and Sarah's expertise truly shone. My detailed financial records, showing the clear lineage of my business ventures, combined with the often overlooked nuances of our prenuptial agreements, which, NGL, I was incredibly thankful for now, proved my individual contributions and ownership beyond a doubt. Sarah ensured that every asset, every deed, every investment was categorized correctly, separating what was mine before the marriage from what was truly marital property. The judge, presented with all the facts, issued a settlement that, while fair in the eyes of the law, was financially unfavorable for Brenda, reflecting her actions and the at-fault ruling. She received her due share of the marital assets, but there was no windfall, no significant portion of my empire to which she contributed nothing. I made sure, with Sarah's guidance, that Brenda received no financial benefit whatsoever from her affair or her betrayal. The consequences of her choices were now tangible. Brenda was left financially strapped. Her legal fees alone were exorbitant, and with no massive payout, she was forced to sell personal items, including her dancing shoes and some of the jewelry I had bought her, just to cover the mounting costs. It was a harsh reality, but one entirely of her own making. My daughter's inheritances were my paramount concern. I ensured that all trusts, savings accounts, and future investments earmarked for Shelley, Mandy, and Carrie were fully protected from any of Brenda's claims. There was no way her actions would jeopardize their future. I also officially changed the beneficiaries on all my accounts, trusts, and life insurance policies, making sure my girls were secure. Once the divorce was finalized, I made a dignified public announcement, a simple, brief statement confirming the dissolution of our marriage, stating that it was due to irreconcilable differences stemming from infidelity. No sensationalism, no dramatic details, just the truth. I let the facts speak for themselves, trusting that those who cared would understand. In the quiet aftermath, sitting in my now solitary home, I felt a sense of vindication. Not joy, not triumph, but a quiet, profound sense of justice served. The anger and the rage had subsided, replaced by a weary peace. The storm had passed, and I had weathered it, stronger and wiser. As a final symbolic act, I took my old wedding band, the one Brenda had desecrated, and held it in my palm. It felt heavy, cold, a relic of a life that was no longer mine. Instead of keeping it or destroying it, I decided to donate it to a local charity that repurposed old jewelry for a good cause. It was a way of severing all ties to the past, transforming a symbol of betrayal into something that could bring a small bit of good into the world. It was time to move forward. The gavel finally fell. The divorce was finalized, legally dissolving Jed and Brenda's marriage. It wasn't a moment of celebration, but rather a quiet, profound sense of closure. The paperwork was done, the assets divided, the legal battle over. A chapter had closed, abruptly and violently, but closed nonetheless. For Brenda, the consequences were far-reaching and deeply personal. She faced significant social ostracism. Our former mutual friends, once so close, largely distanced themselves. Some tried to remain neutral, but the truth, once revealed, was undeniable. She became that woman, whispered about, pitied by some, judged by most. Her professional life, too, suffered immensely. Her reputation, once solid, was now tarnished by the scandal, making it difficult for her to find new opportunities. The professional world, especially in a relatively close-knit community, has a long memory for such things. Mitch Miller, too, faced a complete implosion of his life. He lost his job, just as I'd suspected, his company unwilling to tolerate the kind of workplace misconduct I had anonymously reported. His own marriage, as Gus had confirmed, also ended in divorce, leaving him with shattered personal relationships and the burden of his actions. Their lives, once seemingly carefree and clandestine, were irrevocably damaged. One day I received an unexpected email. It was from Mitch Miller's ex-wife. She thanked me, genuinely, for the truth, for allowing her to escape a life of deceit. She expressed her sympathy for what I had endured. It was a strange, bittersweet moment of shared pain and unexpected solidarity. NGL, I hadn't expected that. Through all the turmoil, my daughters Shelley, Mandy, and Carrie remained my unwavering anchors. They were hurt, confused, and angry at their mother, but their relationships with me strengthened profoundly. We navigated the emotional landscape together, leaning on each other. We talked, we cried, we laughed, and we rebuilt our trust in each other, solidifying a bond that felt unbreakable. They saw me at my lowest, and they saw me rise. As the dust settled, I found a new sense of peace, a profound freedom. The constant anxiety, the gnawing suspicion, the emotional drain Brenda had exerted on my life, it was all gone. My passion for my life and my work reignited. I reflected deeply on the hard lessons learned about trust, about the insidious nature of betrayal, and about my own unexpected resilience. I realized that sometimes the hardest truths set you the most free. The old family home, filled with too many memories, both good and bad, felt heavy. I decided to sell it. It was time for a complete, fresh start. I bought a new, beautifully restored property on the other side of town, a place that felt like a blank canvas, ready for new beginnings. My real estate business thrived. I poured my renewed energy into new, ambitious projects, expanding my empire with a singular focus. My work became a testament to my resilience, a tangible representation of building something new and strong from the ashes of the old. Cautiously, after many months, I began to date again. I took my time, no rush, no pressure. I was a different man now, wiser, more discerning, with a renewed sense of self-worth that wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. It was about finding genuine connection, based on honesty and mutual respect. I found genuine happiness in my independence, in the quiet moments with my daughters, and in the unwavering love and support of my children. Their well-being, their smiles, were my greatest reward. The moral consequences for Brenda and Mitch Miller were profound. Loss, shame, and a future fractured by their own choices. They lost far more than just spouses. They lost reputations, respect, and perhaps even their own sense of self. Their actions had a ripple effect that touched so many innocent lives, and they were left to deal with the wreckage. My journey concluded not with bitterness or a desire for perpetual revenge, but with healing, growth, and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. I had protected my family, rebuilt my life, and emerged stronger. I finally let go of the past, releasing the anger, the pain, and the memory of deceit, embracing a future free from betrayal, ready for whatever lay ahead. NGL, sometimes I still catch myself reflecting on it all, even now. The divorce is long finalized, the dust mostly settled, but the profound consequences for Brenda and Mitch, they're still playing out. Brenda never really recovered socially or professionally. That kind of betrayal, especially with the details I uncovered, leaves a permanent stain. Former friends still avoid her, and her career never quite got back on track. She's still struggling, financially and reputation-wise, living with the choices she made. Mitch Miller's life imploded too. Jobless, divorced, his reputation in tatters. Their little secret affair didn't just hurt me, it nuked both their lives and innocent families. IDK, if they ever really grasp the full weight of that. For me, the anger has faded, replaced by a quiet strength. My daughters are thriving, our bond unbreakable. I've built a new life, a stronger empire, and I finally feel truly free. But the scars remain. That fundamental trust, once shattered, is something you never fully get back. You learn to live with it, but the lesson about human nature, about how deeply someone can deceive, stays with you. Their actions created a ripple effect that continues to define their existence, while I chose a path of rebuilding and truth. It's a stark difference in outcomes, all stemming from one selfish choice.